At no point does it say that if the criminal is a danger for his victims, he should not be transferred. Yes, there are such criteria, but the courts have handed down rulings that have meant that it's a very narrow interpretation that has to be given to that. Only when a threat to national security is involved can that particular factor be considered based on a recent court ruling. So, for that reason, we need to establish new criteria, I believe, to ensure the safety of Canadians. Now, in what case, Mr. Van Loan, would an inmate be able, an inmate represent a threat to an individual or to society in general? I believe there are sexual offenders or murderers or other types of offenders could represent such a threat. It's a case-by-case evaluation that is needed, but the fact is that the protection of society and of all Canadians is a legitimate objective when making decisions on the transfer of offenders. Is there something in the legislation or elsewhere that would protect Canadians in another country who might be charged or convicted of a crime without being guilty? Well, at the present time, the legislation only deals with individuals who are in prison after being convicted of a crime. Even if judicial systems elsewhere don't apply the same standards, well, that's a different question from what we're dealing with here with this legislation. So is it the minister who decides in each case? Yes, in each case. So I don't really understand what more this gives you. In fact, you're already the one who makes the decision.
You're already the last person to decide if someone can come already, right? So what does this bill give you more than you don't already have? Because you could just say this, no, we won't let that person come in because he's a danger or for whatever, just like in this bill, any other factor that you consider relevant. Right now, you already have that.
That's certainly what we are proposing, but right now the practice is that we've had several cases where the courts have been the last person deciding, not the minister. So on judicial review, they've said that there were not criteria within the statute to support a decision to simply protect the security of Canadians, and this is designed to correct that.
Courts from deciding, from having the last word?
What it does is that it provides expanded criteria and makes clear some of the criteria that are aimed at protecting society, and that's what we're seeking to do.
Does this negate the Supreme Court's power, for example, in the Khadr case, to order you to bring him back? I mean, does this give you? Would this bill give you supernatural power over that?
This is entirely unrelated. As I indicated, this deals only with individuals who have been convicted of an offence abroad and are serving time in a detention, a corrections facility, a penitentiary in another country. It's only them. In the case of Mr. Khadr, obviously he is facing a trial. He has not been found guilty at this time. So.
Any other criteria that will be considered? I see that the legislation makes the change of involving the minister in considering these criteria. So does that mean you can also include other criteria that aren't specifically laid out in the legislation? Yes. Yes, indeed. One of the most recent changes is that the minister can consider any other criterion that isn't listed in the bill in order to allow the minister in very specific cases to make an enlightened decision. So the minister has full power to refuse the transfer of the offender. Yes, because the minister will be making the decision. He's the one who's responsible. So like everyone else, he has to be able to exercise full powers and therefore make the proper decision for the right person at the right time. Why not just say in the legislation the minister has full discretion to decide on whether an offender will be transferred, period?
Well, we are listening live to a news conference coming out of Ottawa. We have Public Safety Minister Peter Van Loan on your screen. Well, he was just there on your screen. Also, we have Parliamentary Secretary to the